Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'm going to discuss whether MAGA farmers might actually just be the dumbest people of all. Not just because they're being royally shafted by the first king of the USA, but because they'd already seen it happen during his first term and caused by the same policies he promised to bring back for his second. But first, for daily news and commentary, please hit the subscribe button to stay notified. So I discovered something this week. My view of MAGA supporting farmers, which was already pretty low, because it should have been so obviously a bad idea for them. But an article I read just made it way, way worse than even I thought. So, I mean, there are plenty of examples of people being persuaded to vote against their own interests. We know that the right wing are very well organised, very well financed. They buy up media. They push all sorts of nonsense on people. Like those who most supported Brexit in Britain, for example, were amongst the hardest hit. The Brexit vote was largely supported by the elderly and people in towns who were experiencing economic decline. As a result of Brexit, we have massive problems maintaining supplies of medicines now, as well as higher costs of energy outside the energy single market. Social care is badly affected by the lack of available staff, which is very dependent on immigration. This hit the elderly pretty hard. As for those coastal and industrial towns who experience economic decline over the past few decades, they're now way further behind the most affluential parts of the country now. They saw a lot more relative poverty with Brexit. And the ridiculous thing is, these are now exactly the same people who, because Brexit only made things worse for them, are now voting for the man who, above all others, persuaded the Conservatives to do it. But MAGA farmers may be even dumber than this. So I was reading an article about the impact of Trump's tariffs during his first term. And those tariffs were much milder than the ones he's launched now, because the senior members of his government at the time were working hard to limit his stupidity. Some research carried out said that the biggest losers from Trump's first term tariffs were American farmers, specifically in the MAGA supporting Midwest areas. In the year following the tariffs, bankruptcies for farms increased by 24% as the retaliatory tariffs cost American farmers $27 billion. And it was, unsurprisingly, the smallest farms that were hardest hit. We've said it enough times, connected with Brexit. Smaller businesses are less able to withstand a trade war. And the reason I'm thinking that these guys must be even dumber than Brexit supporters in the UK is you can see how Brexit voters could be blown off course. They were told that the increased problems were caused by COVID or the war in Ukraine or the Tories betraying Brexit. They weren't being shown data demonstrating that actually these problems are only hitting Britain, not other advanced economies who were also dealing with COVID and Russia. So you could understand that they were lied to, and although maybe they should have been better at critically considering what the charlatans were saying, you could see how they could be repeatedly conned. But MAGA farmers voting for Trump last year, they may have survived the purge from his first term, which is why they were still farmers last year, but they must have seen it happening. How do farm bankruptcies increase by 24% in a single year and other farmers are not aware of it? And they will know that it was caused by retaliatory tariffs from other countries who had been buying their produce. The link was very direct and very clear. So when farmers, especially small business farmers, were listening to Trump talking about tariffs being the most beautiful word in the English language and how he really wanted to go for it with them this time, and they were thinking, yeah, that's the guy for us, were they high on drugs? And it doesn't end with just loads of foreclosures during Trump's first term either. The research looked at the bailout which Trump provided for farmers affected, something he's promising to do again, by the way. And this is mind-blowing to me. So this is what the research said. So the counter tariffs cost US farmers $27 billion. So that's a lot, right? But there was a bailout package worth $28 billion. I'm thinking, well, if the bailout was worth more than the cost of the tariffs, how did any farms go under? Didn't the US taxpayer just pay to bail them all out and give them free money and maybe distribute the otherwise wasted food to the poor or something? I don't understand. Well, it seems that almost all of the bailout money, according to this research, went to the really big farms. So although the article doesn't explicitly make this point, it's looking to me like the bailout was just a way of funneling public money into the hands of the rich whilst abandoning those who really needed it. Just sounding an awful lot like the corrupt Tory COVID VIP lane to me. Because after all, how do you have a bailout fund that's worth more than the amount that was lost to the industry and you actually end up still with loads of farms going under? And another interesting aspect to what happened during Trump's first term. So the farmers worst affected were those in the Midwest, MAGA country, who depended upon exports to China. It says farms around, say, California, places like that, where they exported to lots of other countries, were less affected because they would only the produce that was going to be hit with retaliatory tariffs, and not everyone retaliated, were going to be affected. So it gets even better. So these dumbass MAGA hat wearing rubes ploughing their fields in the Midwest of America. So they watched a load of their fellow farmers going under during Trump's term, the first term. They must have known it was because of counter tariffs, so they knew it was due to Trump's policies. They must also have been paying attention to their industry leaders talking about the bailout package, because that would have been a big deal to them. Oh, because even the farmers that didn't go under would have been affected. They may have needed a bit of a bailout, right? And so they must also have seen that actually a lot of this bailout wasn't going to people according to their needs, but to the big guys. Because so many farms were foreclosing, why wasn't the bailout helping them? Being in the industry, they must also surely have been aware which markets were applying the retaliatory tariffs as well, just for their own business interests. Because even farms which didn't foreclose, as I say, will still have had some of their products negatively impacted. They saw all of this, and yet despite these farmers knowing that they also export shitloads of their produce to China, and with Trump threatening huge tariffs specifically against China, they still openly supported Trump for his second term. Trump was talking about a blanket 60% tariff on all Chinese imports and 200% on Chinese EVs. These farmers would know that China would respond because it did before. Holy crap, how do these people even manage to run a farm? I don't think I've heard of anything so moronically self-defeating in my life. I mean, Trump is pretty dumb, sure, but he has so far managed to enrich himself. So at the moment, he's not suffering from his stupidity. These MAGA farmers are next level. I go back to the Brexit voters. Like, most of them weren't business owners. Ordinary members of the public are obviously not involved in NHS medicine supply chains. They don't really understand it if no one explains it. Even factory workers don't necessarily know how the cars or whatever they're producing get sold. So you can get how Brexit voters would support something mind-blowingly bad for them because they don't understand it. But farmers are business owners. They handle their buying and selling. They must know how their own market works. Even Brexit supporting farmers, they were told that their trade wouldn't be harmed. Okay, they shouldn't have believed it, but they were told we would stay in the single market and the EU subsidies would be maintained, and then we weren't going to be in the single market. You know, the other magical things were going to happen instead. So you can see how they go, all right then. What these MAGA farmers have done, it's the equivalent of farmers supporting Brexit, seeing the damage it's done. Then let's say we go back into the EU, and then those same farmers voting to leave it again later on. See, that is next level stupidity. These guys may be the dumbest people to have ever walked the earth. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. If you've enjoyed the video, please click the like button and subscribe for further content. If you'd like to support the channel further, you can click the join button for memberships. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.